Let's go. You can go to hell. I'm gonna go to Texas. Let's go. Oh. Damn, I love this intro. Let's go. Hey. What's going on? How you doing? Happy Wednesday. My name is Tony Mendoza, aka DozaDirection, Mr. Imperfection, and we are streaming live on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartMedia, and of course, I'm recording this on YouTube as well. So thank you guys all for joining in. Thank you guys so much for the support. And before we get started on today's topic, Ayo DV, what is the drink today, my man?
Well, Tony, since today we're talking about Texas versus Tennessee,
Yes, sir.
I'm giving you a straight Texas bourbon whiskey.
Which one is
This
that?
one is Garrison Brothers Small Batch.
Okay.
47% alcohol, 94 proof, a certified Texas whiskey. Back to you.
Well, I can tell you something right now, DV. This bourbon, or should I say whiskey, out of Texas looks super, super dark. The legs on this bad boy is crazy oily, but before I take a sip, you know what we got to do? We got to play the sponsorship. Yo, I need a sponsor. But play the sponsorship while I take this ship. What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for listening to Potential Isn't Proven, the podcast. There's 3 ways you can definitely help this channel grow. And the first way is absolutely free. All you got to do is like and subscribe to my YouTube page and follow everything there is under DozaDirection. It's absolutely free and it helps us out a ton. So please go like and subscribe. The second way is joining my Patreon page. Under DozaDirection, you could be a part of for as little as $2 a month. Anything there is behind the scenes footage, being a part of polls to pick my next topic on the podcast, and all there is. So join the La Familia. And third and final way you can sponsor this incredible podcast is by joining this little section of the sponsor video. Have your business or your organization in this little spot. Just email me at DozaDirection@gmail.com. Have a great day. Let's go, Tony. Back to you.
Hey, Patrick, what am I now?
Stupid?
No, I'm Texas.
What's the difference?
Yo, I'm telling you right now, today's topic means so much to me, not only because I'm originally born and raised from Texas, San Antonio, Texas, to be exact. I now live in Nashville, Tennessee. So today we are talking about Texas versus Tennessee.
Round 1, fight.
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for all the support out there. You guys have been nothing but amazing to me and my journey with Potentials Improving the podcast. And boy, when we're talking about Texas, there's so many things to talk about. And when I want to talk about Tennessee, there's a lot of stuff that we need to talk about, because these two states, even though they are miles away from each other, we're talking 12 hours from at least San Antonio, Texas standpoint. You know, these two states are basically long lost brothers. One of them is that bastard brother that is far away from the other, but there's so much history between Texas and Tennessee. I mean, we got to go all the way back from the history. We got to talk about there wouldn't be a Texas independence without Tennessee. Yo, if it wasn't for Tennessee, straight up, we would never have won the battle. Well, I guess we lost the Battle of the Alamo, but if it wasn't for Davy Crocket and his badass team of volunteers from Tennessee, the Alamo would not have stood for that long And Sam Houston may have never even received the message that the Alamo has fallen. So with that, I got to play a little bit of section from Davy Crocket right here.
I said you all can go to hell. I'm going to Texas.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Y'all can go to hell. I'm going to Texas. But that's not what this podcast is about. It's not only about Texas. We also got to talk about Tennessee, and we got to talk about the similarities between Texas and Tennessee. And the first thing goes like this, real simple. Both Texas and Tennessee both have their state ambassadors. You know how Drake is the state ambassador? I guess state ambassador of Toronto, or I guess not even a state, a city ambassador, a whole freaking country ambassador when it comes to Canada. That's Drake. Well, Tennessee has Dolly Parton, and then you got Texas, which is Jim Adler, the Texas Hammer.
Stingy insurance company. Let me hit first, hit hard, hit often. I'm Jim Adler, the Texas Hammer.
No. You know, that's the funny thing. First of all, that is not our state mascot. Our state mascot, other than Jim Adler's gotta be Willie fucking Nelson. When I think about Texas, you gotta represent Texas, and Willie Nelson is the godfather of Texas, yo. When I'm telling you right now that, man, I looked up the age of Willie Nelson, and Willie Nelson is in his mid-90s, yo. And I'm telling you, all that weed that he smoked, all that marijuana, yo, has kept his ass alive. And he's done some amazing things. Actually, you know what's even funny? A little side story behind that. Willie Nelson actually played one of his first Texas concerts right by my crib in San Antonio, Texas, in a country store called Floor's Country Store. And when it comes to the state of Texas, you cannot talk about Texas without talking about Willie Nelson. Also, you can't talk about Tennessee without talking about Dolly. Yo, Dolly, if you ever saw Dolly Parton anywhere in Tennessee, I swear to God, people will line up and kiss the hand, kiss the ring, kiss the pinky ring of Dolly Parton. Yo, she might as well be gold, because that's how much she means to the state of Tennessee. Not only that, I've even seen license plates with her face on it. I don't even think I've ever seen a Texas license plate with a Willie Nelson face on it. I've seen multiple license plates in Tennessee with Dolly Parton's face on it, which is hilarious. But, you know, if you are from Texas, you definitely also know about Jim Adler, the Texas Hammer.
Stingy insurance company. Let me hit first, hit hard, hit often. I'm Jim Adler, the Texas Hammer.
And also, if you live in Tennessee, you have definitely seen the face of good old Gary. He's in every billboard there is. Real Mac's billboard. He's obviously Real Mac's #1 real estate agent in the state. And that face, yo, that smile, that creepy smile that Gary's got on his face every time I drive the highways in Tennessee, in Nashville specifically. Oh my gosh, that same smile, baby. Hey, do your thing, Gary. You're killing it out here, boy. Now, let's go to another similarity between Texas and Tennessee. Well, I hate to say it, but both Texas and Tennessee both have the same state university of UT. If I had a boo, I would play a boo, but what I'll say is no. I could not believe it. When I moved to Tennessee, I was trying to get away from UT. You know, that school down in Austin. And you know, it's even funnier. When I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, I saw a lot of fans rooting for Tennessee, University of Tennessee, Knoxville, we're talking about specifically, because I remember when it was football season, I went to the bars to watch Texas A&M versus Vanderbilt. All right, so Texas A&M was playing Vanderbilt, so I went to the bar area that is located in Midtown, not Broadway. What everyone knows about Tennessee is, in Nashville specifically, is Broadway. But I went straight to Midtown, and I wanted to watch Texas A&M versus Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's in Nashville, Tennessee. And when I tell you there was not a single game on that had Vanderbilt, everybody had the UT game on. And I'm not talking about University of Texas. I'm talking about the UT of University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And what's even crazier about the similarities between these two states is both teams have the color orange. One, I cannot stand the color of burnt orange, and the other one's some super highlighter orange that I just can't get over with anyway. But, you know, that's a similarity that both got. Now, let's go to another one.
Round one, fight.
Well, another similarity that both Tennessee and Texas have in common is Californians are invading their state. Oh. Yo, no disrespect to anyone that lives in California. No disrespect to anybody who is leaving California for a better deal. Yo, why do you gotta pick Tennessee and Texas? I get it. Texas is practically a country. You know what I mean? They can, if the world went to whack, right? If the world went, if the world freezes over and United States had to go off separately, I think Texas would be just fine with all the oil, all the electricity, even water. I think Texas would do just fine. Tennessee would not do as fine. But what I mean by that is, why do Californians have to invade both states? Californians love the price tag when it comes to houses in Texas and Tennessee. But I have to admit this one thing. Y'all are Californian, us. You guys are changing everything. You guys are driving the prices up. Your boy doesn't have money to buy a house because the Californians are coming into Tennessee and Texas, rising up the prices. That's an issue. And those are both similarities that both Texas and Tennessee have in common. Let's go to the next one. Texas and Tennessee both are the mecca of country music. Now, Texas is badass, where Texas has their own style of country music, which is Texas country. But when you think of the Hollywood of country music, you can't forget about Music City, USA. Music City, USA, basically Nash Vegas, Las Nas Vegas, or Nash Vegas for short. You got the freaking CMAs every year located here in Nashville, Tennessee. You have the CMT Awards located in Nashville, Tennessee. When it comes to making it in country music, you cannot forget about Nashville, Tennessee. And I have to admit, as great as Texas country is, they're all trying to make it to Nashville. Not only are they all trying to make it to Nashville, I think more country artists are trying to make it in Nashville than they are trying to go to, obviously, LA or New York. It's just amazing how much pull the state of Tennessee, I mean, even taking away from Nashville, Tennessee, right? Even taking away the country music, you got Memphis. And Memphis is nothing but straight blues and amazingness when it comes to Tennessee. And then, what's even hilarious about both having ambassadors for both Texas and Tennessee, you also got to talk about hip hop, because I'm a big hip hop head. You got to talk about MGK, not MGK. Excuse me. Back up here. We're talking about 8-Ball and MJG. And you got to talk about UGK. Both teams, both squads, 8-Ball and MJG coming from Memphis, Tennessee. UGK, Bun B and Pimp C coming from Port Arthur, Texas, a.k.a. Houston, Texas. But anyway, we're getting off topic. What is another similarity? Let's go.
Round one, fight.
Well, both kill it. Both Texas and Tennessee both kill it when it comes to barbecue, baby. Oh my goodness. Barbecue. When I moved here to Nashville, Tennessee, you have no idea how excited I was when it came to barbecue, because when you think about what each state does well when it comes to barbecue, Texas is number one when it comes to brisket. Best believe that. Now, I will also say Tennessee kills it when it comes to pork. We're talking about, pulled pork. Oh boy, that pulled pork in Tennessee is freaking phenomenal. But when it comes to brisket, no one does brisket like Texas. But if you put it all together, right, it's still the South, and the South does an amazing job of bringing these two states together. Similarity, they basically are both similar when it comes to that. And I have to admit, the barbecue in both states is freaking phenomenal. All right, now I got to talk about a little more things. So let me see here.
Round one, fight.
Housing market. Oh, the housing market, yo. Let me tell you right now, your boy's over here turned 30. I'm looking to buy a home at some point. Living in Nashville, Tennessee, I don't even know if it's possible to buy a house in Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville, Tennessee is just like Austin with the housing market. So to give you a good example, let me tell you about the housing market when it comes to these great states. Well, if you look at it, Tennessee has, 3 major cities. And no disrespect to any other cities in Tennessee, I'm just going to talk about the big ones, which is Memphis, Nashville, Knoxville. No disrespect to Chattanooga. No disrespect to Franklin, Murfreesboro. No disrespect to them. But in reality, Tennessee only has 3 major cities, and they're all located in different areas in Tennessee, which is Memphis, Nashville, and Knoxville. And the total medium to buy a house is from $230 to $300. And we're not talking about Nashville. Nashville right now, to buy a freaking house. Oh my God. You ready to know what the starting price is? $410,000. My gosh.
Round one, fight.
$410,000 is the starting to buy a house in Nashville, Tennessee. You think I got it? I don't. I got to go 30 miles out of the darn city of Nashville, Tennessee to buy a house. Now, the housing markets are very similar when it comes to Texas and Tennessee, because when we talk about Texas housing market, you got to talk about there are at least 5 major cities in Texas. Let's count them out real quick. You got San Antonio, you got Houston, you got Dallas, you got Austin. How can you forget about Austin? And just to throw another one out there, I'm going to say El Paso as well. No disrespect to Corpus Christi, no disrespect to Lubbock, but there's only really about 5 major cities in Texas that are really worth moving to. And the medium income for a house, the medium house to buy is between $250,000 to $310,000. But if you want to buy a house in Austin, Texas, which I'll tell you right now, I don't think Austin is as great as Nashville, Tennessee, but that's another story for another day. That's another podcast, baby. But to buy a house in Austin, Texas, $480,000, yo. That hurt my balls just saying that. No. I couldn't afford a house in Austin, Texas if I can't, let alone afford a house in Nashville, Tennessee. And it's a sad world that we're living in, but I blame it all on the Californians that are moving into both states. I get it, baby. We got no state income tax. But damn it, boy. I don't need y'all to come in making the prices higher. All right, I'm getting into a ramble. I got another game for you guys. I got a cool game. I like this game, but let me start it up like this.
Round one, fight.
I said you all can go to hell. I'm going to Texas.
All right. Let me tell you the game. It is the good, the bad, the ugly. We're going to talk about Texas and Tennessee. What's the good? What's the bad? What's the ugly? Now, let's go with the first one. When it comes to Texas, what's the good? Well, the good is, I think Texas has the best state pride ever. Now, not to also say that California does not have some amazing state pride. They definitely do. But I think Californians are a little bit more, I guess you could say, location based, right? People are going to say they're from the Bay or they'll say they're from LA. But when it comes to Texas, we don't give a damn where you're from. You could be from Lubbock, Texas to Corpus Christi to McAllen, baby. You're a Texan. And the good is that everybody from Texas says they're from Texas. Their state pride is amazing. Our state fair is better than any state fair in the country. You know what I'm talking about. I ain't lying. Now, what's the good about Tennessee? Well, I got to be honest here. The great thing about Tennessee is you get all 4 seasons. All 4 seasons. You get every season you can even imagine. Right now it's raining right now. And then you're going to get an amazing spring. The fall here, the colors here are immaculate. You get a winter every time where you get freaking weather that turns into snow and you just have an amazing time. You get all 4 seasons in Tennessee. Now, let's talk about the bad. All right. So one bad for Texas is, well, in Texas, it's super flat. It's flat as hell. Let's just be honest here. If Texas is not Dolly Parton, let me put it that way. Texas is more like a Shannon Ford. It is flat as hell. And I'm just not a fan of how flat Texas is because there's very little hills. And when we're talking about hills, we're talking about Tennessee. They got the freaking Smoky Mountains, baby, where it is practically the Appalachian Trail. It is monstrous what they got over there in Chattanooga. And it's amazing what they got over there in Chattanooga, Tennessee. But when it comes to Texas, yes, you have different landscapes, but you got to go miles and miles and miles out just to see those landscapes. Within Tennessee, you actually do get a lot of different landscapes in a very short area. A little bit, not as much. It doesn't take as much time to get to them. So let's talk about the bad. What's another bad thing about Tennessee? Well, let me be honest here. The roads here are fucking trash. When you're talking about Tennessee, you got to talk about the interstate and the interstate I-40, I-65. Yo, let me tell you right now, Tennessee does a fucking terrible job at their highway infrastructure. Potholes are so common. So common on major interstates when it comes to freaking Tennessee. Now, if you live in Houston, Texas, I get it, Papa. You have a hard time driving around too. But, bro, when I tell you that a fucking interstate like I-40 is filled with potholes throughout the entire state of Tennessee, fam, it ain't worth it, bro. It ain't worth driving your car. You're going to have to get a freaking rim check every damn 10 miles, yo. Rim check, rim check, rim check. All right, now let's go to the ugly. The ugly about Texas. It takes, no matter where you live, at least 2 hours to get out of the state. Now, that's being generous. If you live in Dallas, maybe 2 to 3 hours to leave the state of Texas. If you live in Austin, it takes maybe 4 to 6 hours to leave the state. If you live in San Antonio, it takes you at least a solid 6 to 8 to leave the state of Texas. Now, obviously, I'm just basically saying that Texas is a big ass state. It's just geographically so hard to move around. And that's one thing I love about Tennessee. Tennessee is completely maybe up to 3 to 4 hours and you're into a different state. I love that. It's a lot more easier to get around. The ease of travel between Tennessee versus Texas is night and day. And especially if you live in a big city like Dallas or Houston and San Antonio, it could take you up to 30 minutes just to freaking leave your house, just to get some damn groceries. And I think that's one thing to be said about Texas, is that it takes too damn long just to leave your house. Living in Nashville, driving around Memphis, bro, I can get all around the town in under 30 minutes. Under 30 minutes, I can be there and back. And I freaking love that about Tennessee. Now, let's talk about the ugly when it comes to Tennessee. You are landlocked as fuck. You have no water anywhere near you. And why is that a big deal? Well, when you live in Texas, you got the big Gulf of Mexico, and you get every kind of great fish from the Gulf of Mexico. And yo, when it comes to fish in Nashville, Tennessee, yo, you're just getting straight catfish. And I'm not with it. I don't like catfish. I think it tastes grainy, and I just think it tastes gross, man. It's a bottom dweller. It's a bottom feeder. And they eat that up like it's crazy over here in Tennessee. You get no good seafood in Tennessee. And to be honest with you, it's no disrespect to Tennesseans, but y'all are landlocked as fuck. You got to go 6 hours just to get to the water. In Texas, you don't got to go that far. You'll get there just fine in under 2 hours. And I love that about Texas. Now, another funny thing. While we're talking about Texas versus Tennessee, we got to talk about sports. And the saddest thing about both states is we haven't been good in a while. Other than the Spurs, no disrespect, I love my Spurs. But when we're talking about football, how about this? Freaking Tennessee stole a Texas football. Tennessee stole the Texan Oilers just to become the Tennessee Titans. That tells you a great deal about how close Tennessee is to Texas. You guys got our own sports teams. Now, we got to talk about the Cowboys. We got to talk about the Titans. Both of those teams, those pro football teams, are obviously not doing shit. Tennessee has been better as of late, but don't even try to get me started there. Tennessee hasn't been shit for a while. Now, you also got the Memphis Grizzlies. Memphis Grizzlies have always been dominant in the NBA, but not as dominant as the Spurs, but not as bad as Houston. Houston Rockets just fucking blow. Now, while we're also talking about, we got to talk about hockey. When I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, I didn't realize how big hockey was. And it's because everyone that does move to Middle Tennessee is typically transplants from the North. That's something that Nashville has a lot of, is transplants from the North. And I got to be honest, the Predators are fucking fire. The Predators are pretty damn badass. Now, the Dallas Stars are great too, but the Predators got them beat all day. They just have the vibe here in Nashville. And the Predators, I believe, won not too long ago. And I enjoy going to the games. But hey, I went on a little tangent about Texas versus Tennessee. There's so many things about Texas, Tennessee that I love. There's so many things about this state that I love. Both states. And I just got to admit, if you're going to live in either state, there's good and bad for both. But I'll tell you one thing. Both of them have Southern hospitality, and I love that about both states. But hey, my name's Tony Mendoza. This is Texas versus Tennessee. Thank you for joining, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace. Hey. See y'all later. It's time for me to get some dinner.